this episode, we explore the conclusion of NASA's lunar mission, receive an update on SpaceX's Starship development, and learn when China plans to retrieve samples from Mars. America's lunar exploration has reached a temporary pause. The Firefly Aerospace Blue Ghost lander transmitted its final signal on March 16th, concluding 2 weeks of uninterrupted operations on the Moon's surface during what Firefly considers a completely successful mission. Blue Ghost accomplished every single one of its mission goals after its March 2nd touchdown. For its closing operation, Blue Ghost captured images of the sun setting beyond the lunar horizon. While these photographs hold aesthetic appeal, they were captured to study how solar activity affects lunar dust. Scientists are particularly interested in determining whether the dust lifts off the surface at sunset, producing a glow along the horizon, a phenomenon that NASA astronaut Eugene Cernan witnessed during Apollo 17, the last crewed lunar mission. After the sunset, Blue Ghost maintained operations for an additional 5 hours into the lunar darkness, continuing to capture images until its battery was depleted. Blue Ghost also managed to capture an extraordinary photograph of Earth. If you observed last week's blood moon eclipse, this is how that celestial event appeared from the opposing vantage point, a solar eclipse formed by Earth moving between the Sun and the Moon. In total, Blue Ghost successfully transmitted over 119 gigabytes of data back to Earth, which included 51 gigabytes of scientific and technological information. This performance dramatically surpassed the lander's mission parameters. On the subject of conclusions, we have now received the final report on Intuitive Machines' Athena lander, which attempted unsuccessfully to touch down on the Moon's south polar region last week. The company has disclosed that Athena's vision system performed exactly as designed during the landing sequence, with the onboard software successfully identifying craters even within the heavily shadowed landscape. The failure occurred when the lander lost its ability to determine its altitude above the surface. Intuitive Machines' laser altimeter malfunctioned during descent. Consequently, the privately developed spacecraft collided with the lunar surface on a plateau, tipped onto its side, and then slid across the terrain. As it traveled, the lander rotated at least 1 or 2 full turns before finally stopping inside a small shadowed crater. CEO Steve Altemus characterized the landing by saying it resembled sliding into second base. Because Athena skidded along the lunar surface, it generated a substantial dust cloud during its journey. When it finally came to rest, that cloud of dust descended onto the probe's solar panels. This situation, combined with its final position lying sideways in a crater's shadow where temperatures hovered around -280 degrees Fahrenheit, created a scenario where Athena couldn't simultaneously power both its heating system and its communications equipment. Facing this dilemma, the Intuitive Machines team made a difficult decision. Rather than extending the limited battery life across 50 hours of minimal power operation, they opted for 13 hours of transmitting as much data as the damaged probe could possibly deliver. During this period, the lander managed to complete some of its intended objectives. The lander deployed NASA's Trident drill, although it couldn't make contact with the actual surface. Meanwhile, private clients, including Nokia and Lunar Data Holdings, succeeded in obtaining valuable information from their equipment. However, Lunar Outpost was unable to release its small rover, and an innovative hopper vehicle couldn't be activated to traverse the Moon. So what lies ahead? We know that Firefly is currently preparing for Blue Ghost Mission 2. This launch is planned for 2026 and will challenge the company's capabilities even further by landing on the Moon's far side. To achieve this objective, Firefly will mount Blue Ghost atop their Elytra Dark orbital vehicle. As for Intuitive Machines, they theoretically have an IM-3 mission scheduled for launch as soon as October 2025, which would utilize the same Nova-C landing platform that was used in the previous 2 failed landing attempts. The third mission is designated to land at Reiner Gamma, the location of an unusual feature called the Lunar Swirl. This site is positioned closer to the Moon's equator, so theoretically it should present far fewer challenges than landing near the South Pole, which might provide Intuitive Machines with sufficient confidence to proceed with Mission 3. In the meantime, we are still anticipating the arrival of Japan's Resilience lander on the lunar surface. Developed by the private company iSpace, the Japanese payload launched on the same Falcon 9 rocket as Blue Ghost. But Resilience selected a considerably longer and lower energy trajectory to the Moon, meaning it won't actually arrive until early June. Similar to Intuitive Machines, iSpace is attempting to recover from a prior landing failure. The Hakuto R encountered a guidance computer malfunction and crashed into the lunar surface at extreme velocity in 2023. Provided that Resilience successfully lands intact, it will then release 5 scientific payloads, 1 piece of anime memorabilia, and 1 miniature Red House. We'll discuss that in greater detail when the landing date is finally confirmed. While we're waiting, let's examine SpaceX and their continuing Starship rocket development program, which from all appearances seems to be advancing at maximum speed, with the construction of 2 new Starship upper stage vehicles nearing completion. Under normal circumstances, this would be excellent news. But considering that we witnessed the previous 2 Starship launch attempts conclude with catastrophic failures of the upper stage, it seems somewhat unusual that SpaceX is maintaining business as usual. The first is ship number 35, which represents the newest vehicle from their production facility and will serve as the launch candidate for the forthcoming Flight 9, which Elon Musk estimates will occur approximately 4 weeks from now. The ship was initially observed back in October 2024 and has been the quickest ship to date in completing the assembly of the stainless steel rings that comprise the next-generation upper stage. Notably, Ship 35 is the inaugural ship constructed with a slimmer yet potentially more durable heat shield tile that substantially decreases the rocket's mass. This is certainly positive, but as we witnessed during Flight 8, the ship design is evidently insufficient to achieve orbit or even survive through the completion of its ascent burn without igniting and exploding, which indicates that additional modifications are still required. Ship 35 will at minimum require an enhancement to its plumbing system before receiving flight certification, which theoretically demands some extensive retrofitting. Nevertheless, SpaceX has proceeded with cryogenic testing of their new rocket. The ship underwent 3 separate fills with cryogenic liquid nitrogen, once in the upper methane tank, once in the lower oxygen tank, and then finally once with both tanks together. This demonstrates that the ship can safely contain super-chilled propellants without failing under the extreme pressure. The tests seemed to proceed successfully, and the ship was promptly transported back to Megabay 2. This construction facility is where Ship 35 will receive its wing flaps and Raptor engines before being rolled out for final testing. Meanwhile, we're also monitoring Starship booster number 14. If you're following along, this is the identical rocket that propelled Flight 7 in January of this year. And Elon Musk has stated that he intends to reuse this booster on Flight 9, which would establish it as the first Starship booster to attempt a second launch. Theoretically, the Super Heavy requires only modest refurbishment before it will be prepared to carry Ship 35. The ultimate objective for the Starship booster is to launch several times daily, so this would represent a major milestone in the development process to initiate reusability while simultaneously introducing yet another element of risk to the approaching Flight 9. While space exploration appears to be experiencing a resurgence in the United States, there's another nation that seems to be competing in this field. China has officially announced the date for their Mars sample return mission. The United States has maintained their own Mars sample return strategy for quite some time now. They've gathered the samples using their Perseverance rover, and there's a plan currently being formulated to travel there and retrieve them, but it's improbable to occur before this decade concludes. Meanwhile, China has introduced a new initiative that will take place in merely 3 years. Scheduled for 2028, the Tianwen-3 mission will feature both an orbiter and a lander engineered for collecting and returning soil from the Martian surface. The lander will be outfitted with an ascent craft, which will serve as the connection between itself and the orbiter. The mission, which was formally announced several years ago, has been largely concealed in secrecy due to its classified nature. That is, until March 11th, when everything shifted, it transformed from being an exclusively Chinese mission to welcoming international collaboration. The Chinese declared that they desire other organizations to contribute to both the spacecraft systems and the payload, which could assist them in achieving their 2028 target since additional expertise helps accelerate progress. They also disclosed that approximately 15 kilograms of Martian material would be made available for other nations to examine. What would this signify for those other nations, though? Well, for one thing, obtaining samples from another planet would be groundbreaking and worthy of study for any country. We remain uncertain whether the United States could theoretically participate in this venture due to political tensions and regulatory restrictions between the two nations. But if permitted, it could help alleviate some of the urgency to reach both the Moon and Mars ahead of the Chinese government. Only time will reveal how this mission develops, but it certainly possesses the potential to become a historic achievement.